Welcome friends to another r/prorevenge video. The real pros already hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, but we're looking for our next batch of pros. That said, our first story of the day is by Asmodus. Thieving manager tries to frame me for their theft. It doesn't go well for them. This story happened around 6 years ago when I worked for a retail company I'll call No-Op. Jay, the thieving assistant manager, was well known to be a thief by the base staff and some of the lower levels of management. Unfortunately, she was a golden girl to Mo, the store manager, and Travis, the lead assistant manager. And we never had any solid proof. We also didn't get paid docked, etc. unless it was over a certain amount, which it never was. So the staff never had a real incentive to try and find proof. One of Jay's favorite things to steal were vouchers for money off products or shopping because you were supposed to just rip them up and put them in the safe. There was no official way of counting these to return them to the company, so she could use them again in a different store and get away with it. This particular day was Halloween and I was on till 4, the only till with no cameras on it. Mo came up and paid for her shopping with some gift vouchers she had received at a store manager's meeting because the store was doing really well. I served her and no one else touched my till all day because I was the main person on the tills for this shift. We closed up for the night and Jay took the registers to be cashed up. I went out to the pub with friends and had a good night, not knowing what was coming. The next shift I'm on, Mo calls me into the office and tells me that the vouchers she used were not in the safe and she knew that it was my till. She wanted me to return the vouchers and would not press charges or put anything on my file if I just returned them immediately. I, of course, didn't have them and testified as such, but she didn't believe me. I went looking everywhere. The bin under till 4 and the bins outside, under the tills and on the floors around the tills, just in case I had dropped them or put them somewhere dumb while trying to sort out cash, etc. Roughly an hour later, Jay comes in, hears what's going on, and offers to look as well. She finds them in 30 seconds flat, somewhere I had already looked. I essentially hissed out, "What a coincidence that as soon as Jay looks there, she finds it immediately. How coincidental." Seething with white fury as I knew she was now framing me for her own theft. She could have found them in the office and made it a simple mistake, but no, she made me the fall guy for her own idiocy. I tried to plead my case to Mo and Travis, stating that I wouldn't be dumb enough to steal vouchers that I knew were Mo's because I was the one who served her. One of the other team leaders, Paul, knew fine and well it was Jay and tried to tell Mo and Travis that I was being set up. But she was the golden girl and could do no wrong, while my name was mud as far as they were concerned. Heck, they thought Jay had caught me in the act. This meant war. Over the next few months, I got really friendly with Jay, flirting outrageously with her and basically pretending like I really respected her and that we were good buddies. It took me a while to work my way into her trust, but once I was there, I knew I could catch her stealing and prove it. We wasted off a load of Christmas chocolate products that hadn't sold, and I put them in a bag to be put in the bin. Jay said we should take them home, against company policy and seen as stealing because they were just going to waste otherwise. We were stood underneath a camera just outside of its range, so I said, "I don't want any, but if you want them, you can have them," and put them on a trolley just inside of the camera's range. I had studied the camera angles in great detail, preparing for a moment exactly like this. I saw her look at the camera, down at the trolley, and back to the camera before walking off to get her stuff. I warned my colleagues not to take any of the chocolate, even if offered, and had an evil grin on my face, which my colleagues commented on. When Jay came down, she nonchalantly picked up the bag as if it was her shopping, offered chocolate to everyone, and walked out the door with it. Gotcha, witch. The next morning, I arrived for my shift and put on the most somber face possible as I approached Travis. "You should check the cameras on the back door at approximately 22:21. I think you'll find something very interesting." He asked me to explain further, and I looked over towards where Jay was, not even 5 meters away, and looked back. I can't go into further detail right now, but I would strongly suggest you go and look at the cameras for that time now. Travis begrudgingly walked off to do just that, and within 10 minutes, Jay was called into the office, and her bag was searched. Within the hour, she was suspended pending investigation, and within the week, she was fired and barred from the store. I got a full apology from the managers who didn't believe me, who explained they genuinely believed it was me and had no idea Jay could have possibly have been a thief. Their jaws hit the floor after I explained that every member of staff knew she was a thief, but that we didn't feel like we could do anything about it. After going around asking people if this was true, I got another apology. 6 months later, I was offered training to become a team leader myself. I took it, but I ended up quitting for a white-collar role in a different company before I finished my training. So if you worked at a place where most of the managers played favorites and you were pinpointed as the fall guy for somebody else's thievery, mostly because they have their blinders on because of said favorites, after it's all said and done and actually exposed, would you accept their apologies or would you always hold a grudge there? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Love to the Yar, How I Annoyed My Bully. First off, let me start by reminding everyone that the 90s were a different time. I had been bullied both verbally and physically since middle school by a peer of mine. We'll call him Richard. Richard was bigger than me the entire time I knew him, and his parents were rich. Buy their son out of trouble rich. He also played sports and was much loved by the faculty. As such, anytime I tried to do something about my tormentor, no adult would take my side, and most of my peers were too intimidated to do anything either. At the age of 16, Richard was gifted with a classic 70s style car. I don't know cars, don't ask what kind. All I know is it kind of looked like Vin Diesel's car in the first Fast and Furious movie, just a sparkly orange color. He was proud of it and showed it off to everyone, even raving about the chrome wheels and chrome valve stem caps. I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but hopefully you know what I mean. Meanwhile, my not-so-rich tiny self had to walk or ride my bike everywhere. One night, I was walking home from a friend's house and took a different route home. As I passed a side road, I immediately spotted Richard's beloved orange car parked against a curb. I wasn't sure if that was his house, but it sure was his car. All the memories of his bullying and hatred for his entitled, get no consequences but flooded every fiber of my being, and I was tempted to go nuclear and destroy it. Knowing, however, that this would simply make him a victim and me a criminal, I opted for something less dramatic. Thinking quickly and looking around to ensure there were no witnesses, I unscrewed one of his chrome valve stem caps and shoved a small pebble into it. I then screwed it back onto the valve stem, hoped that it would empty the air out of his tires, and went on my merry way, pleased that I had at least tried something. Days later, I actually heard through the rumor mill that Richard's tire had kept going flat. It happened at school, so people knew. He had taken it to get replaced, and that expensive cap had been put on the new tire, and that too had gone flat. Nobody who knows Richard knows what I did, and I never found out when the problem was corrected, and the bullying didn't stop until I left high school and never saw him again. But at least I did one thing to make his life miserable, and that was enough to make me smile. I think despite everything, being bullied and pushed around by this guy for years, I appreciate OP's restraint because how easy it would be to open up the fuel tank really quickly, dump something in there, and disappear likely without getting caught because, like OP said, this was the 90s, I doubt there were very many house cams out there. But like OP said, this is just about getting back at them, not about becoming a criminal. And honestly, if it were me, I probably wouldn't have the cojones to do anything in general. The last thing I would want is to be somehow connected to a multi-$1,000 crime. This next story is by Craggle Tom, The Time I Set a Trap for My Sister. Back when I was 14, my sister was still regularly trying to get me to give her money. I tried once to write out an IOU to see if she'd sign it in front of Dad, and she pretty much reacted exactly how I thought she would, by blowing up at me and then crying to Mom. And Mom pretty much always sided with her until I got Dad involved. At first, my sister was begging to borrow money, but I called her out that she'd never pay it back. That's why I made the IOU. After that, she just started parroting our mom's words of how girls need money more than boys, and that I should just give it to her. This awoke the more petty side of me. I knew sis was practically salivating over the money in my safe, and she'd almost do anything to get at it. So I came up with a plan to try and make her stop. I updated my ledger for how much money I'd saved and walked into the living room while holding it. Then left it on the coffee table and pretended to go to the bathroom. I left the door cracked and saw my sister pick up the ledger and start reading it, and she looked pissed. Then she put it back where it was and left the room. Now for the next part of the petty revenge I took, I found Dad's old camcorder in the basement. It was from the 90s, but it could record 6 hours of footage on one VHS tape, so I hid it in my room under a pile of laundry on my bed. Then I put a $20 bill in my dresser. I generally shut and locked my door when I left my room because of my sister's past actions. She's an opportunist by nature, so I knew exactly what she'd do. It took 3 attempts with my leaving my door ajar before she took the bait. I pretended to forget to shut my door before going out to work odd jobs or go for a bike ride. On the 3rd time, I went back to my room and the $20 bill was gone. And I pulled the tape out of the hidden camcorder and put it into my bedroom TV with a built-in VCR. Not even 1 hour after I left, she came sneaking into my room, saw the money, took it, and ran. I immediately called my mother and told her sis stole from me again. She flatly denied it like usual. I said, "Sorry, Mom, but this time I have video evidence. She stole money from my room." Mom says, "So what? You should have locked the door or put it in your little safe." I say, "That's not an excuse and you know it, especially after everything that's already happened. Now you know how this will go down. Either you get sis to give me the money she took, or I'll call Dad right now. And you and I both know what he will do." Mom face contorts and says, "Fine," then leaves to get my sister, then comes back dragging sis by the hand. Sis says, "But I didn't do anything, let me go." I just hit play on the VCR remote and said, "Really? Then what's this?" Sis starts tearing up seeing herself on camera taking the money. Mom says, "Give it back." Sis says, "But I don't." Mom says, "Give it back," through closed teeth and eyes. Sis ran to her room and came back with a $20 bill. She crumpled it up and dropped it at my feet saying, "I hope you choke on it," before blowing me a raspberry and slamming my door shut. After that, my sister barely asked me for money at all because I was still wanting her to sign an IOU, and started begging more from Mom, who hardly ever gave her any money unless Dad took her allowance away for the month. And they both avoided me for a while. Getting Mom to make sis return the $20 was a huge blow to both of their egos. And it finally made my sister start seeing that she couldn't get what she wanted from me anymore. When I told my dad what I did later on, he got a good laugh out of it and said I shouldn't have baited her, but it was a good way to teach both her and Mom a lesson they didn't soon forget. Sadly, I don't have the tape with the recording of her stealing the $20 anymore. It mysteriously disappeared not long after this incident. Likely my mom or sister threw it away. Honestly, judging off of their past behavior, they probably took it and smashed it into a million pieces and buried it. I bet OP's sister would have done whatever she could to get rid of that tape. Or maybe they didn't think too hard about it and tossed it into a trash can, but I don't think that would be very reassuring. And our final story of the day is by Green Yo-Yo 11. Won't clean up after yourself in the kitchen? I'll bring it to your room. College student here living in an apartment of 5 guys. For the most part, we all get along and are good friends. However, there is one of us who frequently uses the kitchen, always leaves a huge mess, and never cleans it up. The rest of us brought up the issue multiple times, and he always just brushes it off. Well, me and one of my other roommates finally had enough and decided to take matters into our own hands. We decided to do a deep clean of the kitchen, except instead of throwing away the trash, we threw it in his room. If he won't clean the kitchen, let's see if he'll clean his room. Update: the dude doesn't even realize we put trash in his room. I also found a bug in the kitchen and slid it into his room for good measure. Kinda sad that I'm not gonna get a reaction though. I think more than anything, it's plenty telling that you trashed their room basically. They walk in and they're like, "Huh, sturdier in here than I remember. Anyways." Or maybe they're so ashamed of the mess they made being in their room now that they'd rather fake pretending that they don't notice it, because I guess that's one way to save face a little bit, right? I mean, obviously the best way would just be to come clean, no pun intended, and say they'll try to do better. But nope, guess they'll just wallow in their ex-kitchen filth. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel, and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.